Welcome back to the Posscast. This definitely isn't our
Hello.
second recording session because I accidentally listed the wrong thing in the intro 5 seconds in. Because I'm perfect. I don't make mistakes like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, allergies are killing me right now.
Oh, they're killing me as well. I am effectively blind right now. Uh, so,
My
uh,
eyes hurt.
yeah. So, we're here to bring you some prime Reddit cringe. I prefer mine medium well. What about you?
Uh, you know.
All right. So you have a sort of. He's just saying you know and leaving it at that.
Yeah, you know.
Nobody fucking knows. Um.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have wonderful stories to start us off with, correct?
Yes, I do in fact. I have I have a post from 10 days ago
Oh
by
boy.
user Unicorn Sandwich, 16 upvotes.
Oh
Eh.
man, that sounds delicious. What do you think unicorn meats taste like?
Like horse but pop rock.
Horse but pop rocks? Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
We have the tale of the crying power player and chaotic hobo couple.
Oh boy, I do love alliteration.
Yeah.
All right, let's do
I'm a
this.
relative. Okay. I'm a relatively new DM. Started around August 22nd, but I am a full-time freelance. But I'm a full-time slash freelance game designer. I decided in between looking for game design jobs, I would tinker with a few campaigns and homebrew on top. I considered making a throwaway, but at this point I don't care enough. This was too ridiculous and kind of funny. I'm about to do a session 0 with this player and nip that shit in the bud very early. I was running the Lost Mines of Phandelver campaign with two separate groups. Group A, friends and partners, all relatively new players. And Group B, my dev team, mostly programmers and DMs themselves. The first 4 to 5 sessions with Group A went fine. It's a group of 5 players, and everyone filled different roles to make it an even spread to make combat and interactions diverse enough. By the sixth session, I had homebrewed a mini one-shot within Phandalin, where the town's orphanage had just had one of its children murdered at night, and the caretaker's nowhere to be seen.
Oh no.
The party is on an NPC's orders. Bleh. The party, on an NPC's orders, proceeds to investigate the crime scene as he knows that they are impartial and innocent. The main premise was to check the property and see what they can find. Very simple.
How can you be sure the party is innocent? I mean, killing orphans is something that adventure parties are typically known for.
Mm, True. At this point, I had noticed I had an issue with two of my players. Power player, a Twilight Domain cleric who didn't like to heal, but more do big damage. I would also get in on rolls. Not really main character syndrome, but they really wanted knowledge, so would often be the first character to touch something or investigate.
Oh boy.
I kind of quickly made a ruling that it's impossible for this PC to do that many things at once. And the Chaotic Hobo, a wild magic sorcerer, of course, whose backstory was some old dude who's crazy and likes to collect sticks as currency.
Eh,
I tried to help him and homebrewed an item that distorted his perception and value of objects to the currency of sticks. I also homebrewed mini Easter eggs and semi-plot hooks to justify why his character was crazy.
I kind of
This
dig
didn't
that
empower
character.
him. Yeah. This didn't empower him, it did settle him down a bit, but he would often try and run off on his own, try and start fights with randoms, etc.
I'm no longer on board with this character.
I should also point out, these two people are partners.
Uh.
The orphanage is owned by my Kaeta Kobo's in-game ex-wife, and he did a great job role-playing and calming down his crazy tendencies given the circumstances of a murdered child in his ex-wife's house. It was a great way for him to play a crazy character, but still ground them with some empathy. I was happy with where that was going. The party did their investigation, which led them to a cellar underneath the kitchen, where the players found a young undead girl who had gone missing several months before. The room was incredibly dark, and the girl was standing by the remains of another villager next to an altar which had a dull light to it. I found 2 creatures that I wanted to use. A Slaymate and a Quell, 2 creatures from 3.5 who have been converted to 5e.
What is a quell?
And then there's a link to GM Binder.
Oh god, that sounds worse than Dan Wiki.
It's just a bunch of.
Is it actually balanced or some shit?
Let me look at the Quell. Let's see. 2 fiery green eyes glare from a shrouded, half-real visage of this vaguely humanoid shape. Either it is dressed in robes, or its ectoplasmic flesh is naturally loose and flowing. Dark symbols hang in the air just above and about its form, freestanding glyphs that viscerally demonstrate the creature's anathema to all things divine.
Okay, so it's like something that hates the gods or some shit.
Quells are incorporeal creatures of malevolence in the night. They despise all living things, as well as the light that nurtures them, but the urge that truly drives them is their hatred of those who serve deities.
That actually sounds pretty interesting.
If they could, Quells would commit deicide, though of course such actions are far beyond a Quell's power. However, while a Quell cannot directly affect a deity, it does have a power over the connection between a deity and its followers. Because of their powers, Quells are sought out by bands of more powerful undead or necromancers. It's got a life drain attack, multi-attack.
Okay, so basic shit. Basic
It's
undead.
an interesting thing.
Alright. Sounds like it's just a white with some flair.
Yeah. The girl was not hostile unless
Go,
any
white
violent
boy, go.
/ semi-forceful actions were made. As soon as the girl has any physical force on her, she would go invisible and leave. Still in holds initiative and can be killed. The Quell acts as a protector of the little Slaymate, essentially. The Quell has an ability called Intercession, recharge on 5 or 6. Each creature within 45 feet of the Quell that is a celestial or a user of divine magic, clerics, paladins, druids, rangers, or some other class the DM deems appropriate, must make a DC 13 Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, a target cannot cast spells via divine magic until the start of the Quell's next turn. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more, this effect instead lasts until the target finishes a long rest.
Oh, jeez. That's not good.
Few party members succeeded, a few failed, and only the Twilight Circle power player failed immensely.
Oh boy.
Or Twilight Cleric, rather. I think it was like a 2 or a 3. Needless to say, I stated her connection to her deity felt completely severed, while the others felt their connection to the weave diminished. I tried to not give the actual meta info away, in saying that a long rest was required. Immediately, I saw the power player's body language change, and they were upset. So I gave up the info and said, it's not all bad. All you have to do is take a long rest and your powers will return. You still have your bow and melee weapons. She became even more upset by this, becoming very quiet. A few other players' turns transpired, and she went off to the bathroom. She came back, and it was incredibly obvious that she had been crying. I was internally thinking to myself, what the fuck? This is a game. It's all in good fun. The dice fucked you over. It happens.
Yeah, if you can't handle failing, don't play a game that has dice that have ones on them. play Skyrim if you want a power fantasy.
It got to her turn, and I asked her what she wanted to do, and she proceeded to say, "Nothing. I'm just gonna stand there and end my turn." Which, thematically, could work if your deity was cut off from you, but clearly it was because she was upset with what had happened. She proceeded to sit there and sulk, and the entire room's mood was killed. Like, it felt like eggshells grew out of my fucking floorboards, and we had to roll stealth checks to not upset her anymore. We're all in our 30s, and the Chaotic Hobo and Twilight Cleric are around 22 to 24 years old. So I can understand maybe a lack of maturity, but even so. The combat ended. I think the bard mocked it to death. We managed to get some smiles and laughs in, but as they were leaving the cellar, I could see she was still upset, even though a fucking long rest was about to happen. So I was quick on my feet, wanting to stop this mood kill, and made a voice creep into her head. The Raven Queen, who made fun of her for being weak, but also promised her more power in exchange for assistance.
That doesn't sound like the Raven Queen.
It was obvious she wanted to do big money damage, and so I presented her the option to change class, Warlock, or stay as Cleric. She chose Warlock, and all of a sudden there were smiles. You were saying?
I'm guessing that the quote unquote Raven Queen is actually some sort of like deceiver, like Thurzdune.
I don't know.
Yeah, some powerful evil entity that claims to be other entities.
Could be. I'm not sure. Spoiler. Not for fucking long, though.
Oh boy.
Fast forward to next session. They were investigating the house of the caretaker of the orphanage. Again, another situation of a homemade cellar that led very deep into the ground, where the group fought some Quatoas.
Those are the
These
flying
little...
snake, right?
They're little fish guys.
Oh.
These little fish boys have a net that can restrain any player that fails a save. The player can either make a strength check to get the fuck out of there, or cut their way out. It's all incredibly low DC shit. Power player is now a Hexblade Warlock. Power player unfortunately fails her save and is restrained in the second round of combat. No biggie, I can tell her she can either cut her way out or make a strength save to get free, but it will be her turn. As soon as I said that, she proceeds to get upset and go to the bathroom and cry again. This time not as many tears, but hot fucking damn. I wasn't really in the mood, so I pretty much said that it was a wee little net, and she just had to roll higher than a 10 to get the fuck out. Instead, the other players wanted to stop her from being sad and cut her out, wasting their turn. At the end of the following session, the Hexblade Warlock and Chaotic Hobo started to get in an in-game fight because the Chaotic Hobo ran ahead, and instead of interrogating one of the men they were hunting, he went to kill them. The power players proceeded to stop the Chaotic Hobo by grappling/tripping the hobo. I let a few moves slide because stopping stupid murder hobo shit I'm all for, but when the two wanted to keep on casting spells or attacking each other, I cut it off quickly by putting some NPCs on the map. Another session, the two were fighting over if they could or couldn't cast a certain spell because they didn't have a free hand to do the somatic component, getting into arguments outside of the session about it. So they made a private chat of the three of us, of just them two bickering if they could/couldn't cast it. It was fucking weird, dudes and dudettes, let me tell you. It's almost as if one of them didn't want the other to succeed. Two contrarians just battling it out. How much? Okay, this is almost over. This type of dynamic happened a few times after that, and bit by bit, I started to not want to play that campaign anymore. I was having way more fun with Group B and another campaign I was in at the time, so I slowly let it dry out, or booked my other campaign in on the day Group A would be available. Around 2 months before Christmas, I messaged Group A and said, "Time is not on our side. Our druid's working Christmas retail and won't get weekends free. It's a busy season, so let's pick this up in the new year." And everyone was fine with that. It came to Christmas, and I wished my friends all a Merry Christmas. We asked how our Christmas was, and if we got spoiled with gifts. The power player sent a photo of the first set of dice she received, borrowed from her boyfriend before, saying, "Can't wait to get into the campaign in the new year." I felt so
Ooh.
fucking bad, as I had no intention of returning back to the campaign with those two cursed PCs. Feeling like a douchebag, I put the offer there for us as a group to occasionally do adventures from Candlekeep Mysteries, because I do genuinely like them as people and friends, and I miss their company. I've run a few already. I've already run a few mysteries from the book and with other players, and had a lot of fun. They all gave a thumbs up, and we booked in an upcoming date to do a session 0. We're going to roll for our stats, stat by stat, and I have some fair mulligan home rules too. My plan for session 0 is to basically address the above and say, "That was fucking weird, don't do it again or I'm out. No murder hobo, and no getting upset from simple conditions." I told them to manage their expectations, as they may want to play a particular class, but they might roll so poorly that class might not work out. I asked them out of curiosity which class they were most interested in playing. Power player said fighter, and chaotic hobo said rogue. The joke on me and future RPG horror story I'll have with this power player is that the first 4 campaigns in Candlekeep Mysteries has nearly exclusively creatures immune or resistant to non-magical physical damage. Why do I do this to myself?
Oh boy. Keep an eye out for that, because
Hmm.
if they do post that, then I definitely do want it on the channel.
TLDR, power player cried when a creature stopped their powers from being used until a long rest, which was about to happen. They cried again when a Klatoa threw a net on them. The chaotic hobo proceeded to get into a lot of in-game fights with the power player, leaving them to argue offline about the stupidest shit. I ditched the campaign, and after a few months offered to start up non-regular one-shots for them, writing on the wall that more tears may be shed.
Oof. God, that is. So, advice to players: you're playing a game. There are ones on the dice. You are bound to fail at something at some point. It's going
Yeah.
to happen. It's an inevitability. So, don't get upset when you fail. Try to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Advice for DMs. Yeah, that, don't. You shouldn't have to spoil things just because one player is upset at the current outcome. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to ruin your campaign just to satisfy one player. Like, don't torture yourself.
Agreed.
Yeah. Also, don't be a murder hobo and don't be a power gamer unless the campaign is specifically about being those things. Like if it's like a TPK one shot, then yeah, you can power game because you're not intended to survive, and like the whole goal is to survive as long as possible. Or like if you're playing an evil campaign, then it might be okay to be a murder hobo, but also be cautious of the consequences, because a roving band of people who'd go around burning down orphanages is going to draw the ire of some powerful people.
True.
Yeah, I guess ultimately it does come down to managing expectations and like making sure you have a character that fits with the campaign and also with the group. What do you think?
Sorry, I'm a little disoriented.
That's fair. As usual, we just woke up.
I'm probably gonna be going back to sleep after this, honestly.
Ah, nice. Alright. You have anything else to say on that one?
Nah.
Alright. I have a story called GM Doesn't Comprehend That Tabletop RPGs Are a Group Activity. It was posted 6 days ago by Nerbs the Word, and it has 213 upvotes.
Oh boy.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes. Before I begin, I want to say that I'm making this post to vent my built-up frustrations with the game and the GM. I don't need advice. The story is in the past. If you want to share your stories in the comments, comment on things you notice. Hell, even explain how I may have been a dick in this situation because I may have begun to be one near the end. Feel free to. This post is very rambly, so it may not make complete sense, so you have been warned. Alright, I'm gonna skip the TLDR. For context, I started out playing D&D 4-ish years ago, and this guy, let's call him Michael, thank you for having a proper name, was my...
Michael.
Yeah, I'm gonna imagine Michael Scott. Let's call him Michael. He was the first GM for a group of, first edition D&D. Now, I put that in quote-unquote first edition AD&D. I put that in quotes because looking back, it was not 1E AD&D. It was an abomination mashup of whatever he liked being thrown into one melting pot of content. For instance, his DMPC was straight up a ripoff of a major character from an indie game he liked. And every NPC from the game was also... from that game was also in the campaign world as well. This was especially annoying as the game was sci-fi and we had our high fantasy party going against some video game avatars from deep space. Now,
Oh boy.
he had a serious hard-on for Mary Sue DMPCs, and worse than that, his DMPCs were super special, super powerful, super cool, and amazing. He made his DMPC in his first AD&D game an illusionist assassin. This was fine for everyone except for my character, which was the party's rogue, because the DMPC was equal level to my character in assassin, while having the same amount of levels in illusionist because of custom magic item, in quotes. That leveled both classes at once. Yeah. So, my character was pretty much there to try things this DMPC failed at, which was only in situations where we forced him to roll out in the open to avoid fudging dice. This character also had a cloak of invisibility, 2+2 daggers, and a bunch of other homebrew items. While this character specifically had a +1 short bow, while my character specifically had a +1 short bow and nothing else. That was another thing he had a problem with. Fudging. The DMPC never failed, never missed, always rolled amazing in combat. This made combat a complete breeze, as not only did we have a character twice our level on our side, but enemies would also never take serious damage from our characters. The amount of times I was knocked down to -9 HP in AD&D, if you drop to -10 you die, was astounding. And it just showed he was fudging rolls to prevent his character's death. Lastly, the whole DMPC ripped off from another game thing was his fascination of ripping off items, characters, areas, dungeons, puzzles, and even entire campaigns from video games he likes. This would be fine, hell, I use things from existing media all the time, but none of the things he likes are in theme, and it's annoying. Our party fighter's primary weapon is an aluminum baseball bat that our cleric had a set of two-way radios. The wizard had a cell phone. Yet another was quote-unquote lore. His quote-unquote lore was gospel. It triumphed over other aspects of the game. If your character concept went against the lore, it was banned. If you tried to do anything that was against the quote-unquote lore, it was shot down. Now, this wouldn't be a problem, except, again, I have lore in my this wouldn't be a problem. Again, I have lore in my settings, and I try to stick to it to a reasonable degree. The problem is, nobody knows what the lore is. We don't get lore documents, he never shares us the lore in-game, and I'm certain that it's either so he can keep his game world mysterious with minimal effort, or, more likely, so he can do whatever he wants and give his DMPCs whatever crazy abilities he wants, and shut down anything he doesn't like. The most recent
Yeah,
campaign...
probably.
Yeah, definitely. The most recent campaign was him running a bastardized version of City of Mist. I understand that you can run games how you want, but he took City of Mist, the noir game, with focuses on mystery, intrigue, and character development and roleplay, and turned it into a sci-fi adventure across a post-apocalyptic world with stupid world-building gimmicks. This may have been fine, except for the fact that the quote-unquote adventure was performing scouting missions for his Mary Sue NPC. Yeah. Flashbacks to the airship.
Ugh.
He also got mad at me for building a character around combat in a game that was not only supposed to be about combat, but also had 3 other characters, none of which had combat abilities. So I had to switch my characters twice. When my current character, this time now into the world-ending calamity, decided to just solve the problem via planetary evacuation. We had spaceships, we could leave. Michael got so pissed off that he wiped the entire universe of the game, except for his favorite DMPC, using an illogical, then the really powerful bad guys show up and kill everyone except my characters who drive them back and live happily ever after. We looked both ways before crossing the street and then get hit by a submarine. Unfun, painful, and impossible to predict. His exact words were as follows. In my campaign, if you don't do one specific thing, you fail. And guess what? This is the fail condition. I realized that we had no agency. The game was a railroad that shows off what he wants us to see. He runs the game to show off his stuff, even if we don't care. We deviate from the railroad, and and take control of the train, switch tracks, and even try to get off the train. It crashes and burns, and we end up beaten for even attempting it. This is not a TTRPG. It's a linear video game without any fun of the mechanical mystery or fascinating lore or cool characters. It's like if you took self-insert fan fiction of a bunch of video games and mashed them together and then made that setting your TTRPG. I don't know how I put up with this for 4 years.
God, 4?
Yeah, 4 years. He was the second worst game master I ever played under. The first being only reserved for a man who turned out to be a whoa. Okay. I'm frustrated and I'm sad, and I feel like my time's been wasted. And now I'm glad that I'm not playing with him anymore. I just wish that I had built up the balls to leave these stupid games earlier and realized how awful they really were. At least the time slot we were running is going to be taken by an actually fun game. Now we'll do the TLDR. I just got done with a game master who made the entire game about himself, his lore, his NPCs, his DNPCs, his story, his adventure, his dungeons. The characters didn't matter, their actions didn't matter, and the game was on the rails. If you did things in one specific way, you either did things in one specific way or you failed the campaign. Okay. So, where to even start?
First off, the characters had no agency whatsoever, which is
a cardinal sin.
Yeah, that strikes number 1 and 2 at least.
Yeah. Having them be overshadowed by DNPCs is also a major strike. Like, I'm not against DNPCs existing, but they should not steal the limelight from the players.
Yeah.
Like, imagine how unsatisfying it would be if, like, Tross ended up getting the kill on the Archfey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or if like, or it like, the thing is that yeah, I'm pretty sure Tross is higher level than us, but you know, he should be. He's like way older than us, and an adventurer. But
Ex-adventure.
also,
He hasn't adventured in like 30 years. Actually, I think it was like
yeah,
25.
but also like, oh boy, there sure was an event that happened 25 years ago. It's like, yeah, like he helps sometimes whenever he's like on the ship and there's fighting. But also, like, you know, he doesn't like waltz around moving at fucking 90 feet per turn, throwing a billion daggers.
Yeah, no, he only had like the one dagger and later the other dagger. And when he threw them, he had to go and retrieve them before he could use them again.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of combat, most of his stuff was reserved for like handling mooks, which y'all could take down in like one or two hits, so that y'all could actually focus on the main threat.
Yeah, he was just there for ad clear, which is like, you know, great.
Yeah, it's background stuff.
If you're gonna have a DMPC in the fight, have him fight the minions.
Yeah. That way it makes it feel like they're actually contributing and also doesn't overshadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, his main role is to serve as like exposition whenever you ask.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how to do a DMPC right. You never want to upstage the players.
He's there to give us info because he's a smart man who went to college.
Yep.
And he's also there to introduce plot points sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, he was the very first plot hook.
Yeah, and I have a little book that he can write me in.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the other cardinal sin of this story is the magic item, which lets the person level up twice per level. Because that is broken.
Yes.
That is disgusting.
It's like, oh, but you know, he's still just like level 6
He's like,
in
no.
Rogue.
Yeah, no.
It's like, no, you're a level 12 you're a level 12 evenly leveled multi-class character.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
You have the abilities of 2 people.
Yeah. It's disgusting. DMs only want one thing, and it's disgusting.
Chewy.
Yeah. Alright. So yeah, that DM sucks. The moral of that story is just leave. You can leave. Like, if you're not having fun, leave. So that you can you can use the time that you would be playing to play a better game with a better group and a better
fun.
DM. Yeah. Alright, you got a story?
Yeah, I got a story.
Alright, hit me.
Lawful stupid paladin killed me because I was, quote, evil.
I do
Posted one day ago by...
Oh, go on.
Posted a day ago by user Hawthorne Weeps.
Ooh.
514 upvotes.
Nice. I do love lawful stupid paladins.
Yes.
I love that stupid and asshole have ended up becoming two ends of a spectrum. Because, you know, you have the lawful stupid paladin, you have the chaotic asshole rogue.
Yeah. Water.
Water?
Yeah, I have some liquids to consume.
I also have liquids to consume, but it is pink lemonade.
Yeah, well, I can't just go and drive down to the gas station when I'm thirsty.
I don't do that.
Have a car.
I don't fucking do that. I buy all the fucking pink lemonade that I'm gonna be consuming. I bought this stuff yesterday morning. I got 2 liters
Ah.
of pink lemonade.
This happened many moons ago in my 20s when I joined a D&D group after having spent many years playing Swedish and British TTRPGs.
Interesting.
I created a sorcerer who came from a kind of Rome-like country far away where life was cheap and empathy was an alien concept. He wasn't a bad or cruel man, just someone heavily colored by the circumstances of environment. A sort of the ends justify the means character that did what he had to do in order to survive in a harsh world. He'd recently arrived on the Sword Coast after being exiled for the throwing in with the losing side in a recent coup attempt. Our GM read my character background and said this meant my character was neutral evil. I didn't know what this meant, and it seemed an awfully simplistic approach in order to describe a morally ambiguous gray character, so I protested. My character wasn't evil. The GM insisted that since I was new and completely unfamiliar to D&D and how its alignment system works, I would just have to accept that this is how the game worked. I reluctantly agreed to it.
I'd say that sounds more like lawful neutral than neutral evil.
Yeah, oh well. Uh, uh, Neutral evil, yeah, I guess. Considering, he's doing it to meet his own ends.
Yeah, I guess.
The first few games went fine, and I quickly began to develop my character along the line of learning what true friendship means, how to be part of a team, and not just look out for myself, and so on. I didn't do any of the things I have since learnt are associated with evil characters. I obeyed the law. I never laid a finger on a friendly NPC, and helped my party whenever I could, even if it meant risking my life. The things I did do was things like taking things I felt could be useful from the home of a dead NPC, arguing that we should work with the Thieves Guild against our common enemy instead of fighting them, or suggesting we carefully study the magical necromantic book instead of burning it, to try and find a way to find out if our enemy had a weakness. If the group disagreed, which they usually did, I abided by their decision. Then one session, as me, Jimmy, and the paladin, Anders, were alone together on our way to buy supplies from a nearby village, he suddenly declared that he was attacking me. I draw my sword and attack Jimmy! What? Why? 'Cause your character's evil and I'm a paladin. I'm not evil! I did a detect evil spell when you were in the bathroom. GM, we did. I didn't know he would do this. Sorry. That's just a stupid rules thing. It doesn't mean my character's a villain. It does mean my character, and it does to my character, and I have to fight evil. Please don't do this. No, I have to. It's what my character would do.
Oh god, that just
Anders,
gave me
you fucking asshole.
God damn it.
Huh.
Fucking Anders is that's from Dragon Age, right? Anders was the paladin in Dragon Age.
I don't know. I've never played Dragon Age.
Anders is in Dragon Age. He is the guy that. Oh no, that's not the one I was thinking of. I was thinking of Alistair, not Anders. Okay, never mind. Ignore me. But also, paladins could work with characters that don't necessarily have the same moral alignment if it is to serve if it is to defeat a much bigger threat. Oh my god, this person's giving me an aneurysm.
Yeah. After about 5 minutes of arguing, the GM allowed us to do PvP combat, but suggested that no one kill anyone else. I fought the paladin as best I could, but I was no match for his combat abilities, and I soon found myself downed. Then he killed me. Me and Anders then spent about an hour arguing. Eventually, the GM and the other players decided Anders was the asshole, and that we should GMX Machina post-retcon the whole thing so that his character died, as punishment for being a game-ruining jerk. And all was well, until my next RPG horror story, wink.
Oh man. So I don't think I'd necessarily retcon it so that I don't think first of all, I wouldn't let that situation happen, period.
Yeah.
Any sign of lawful stupid paladin, or any sign of lawful stupid, or just, wanting to kill another player for no reason, I would
Yeah.
shut that down.
There's a Q&A,
Oh boy.
or an FAQ.
Oh
I
boy.
decided to add a short FAQ. Is Anders really an asshole? Yes, he is. An asshole and a troll. But he's our asshole troll, and we, tolerate him a lot. One time when we were out drinking, he annoyed some people so much that they beat him up. Me and the GM bravely defended him by keeping a safe distance and calling the police.
Nice.
Detect evil doesn't work like that.
It was probably an earlier
At-
edition, like 3.5.
Maybe. At the time, we thought it made all evil people and creatures glow red. It's stupid, I know, but I thought D&D was a really dumb and backwards rule system, so I never questioned it working like that. Ooh, I'm dehydrated. I'm doing that thing where I pinch the skin on the back of my knuckles and it stays up.
Ooh.
Did it really happen like that? Sort of. The attack happened exactly like that, and it took everybody by surprise. But Anders had been planning the move in secret for some time, because he suspected my character was up to no good. The detecting evil thing was just to confirm his suspicion. Your character was evil, bro. Not in my mind. He was intended to be much more of a Varys than a Ramsay Bolton. If D&D considers that to be evil, that shows just how shallow and stupid the alignment system is. Though I might unintentionally have played it up a bit by jokingly doing impressions of villainous characters like Saruman, Ricka, Alan Rickman, or Gollum while playing. Why didn't your GM stop it? I think he was as shocked as confused as the rest of us. Why didn't you kick Anders from the group? Because that would have felt mean, and we didn't think it was bad enough to warrant such an extreme response. Do you still play together? No, but that's a story for another time.
Oh man, I hope we get that story. Yeah.
End of the story.
We got quite a few stories we got quite a few users to keep an eye out on for future stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, don't... It really fucking sucks to, be killed by one of your party members. And also, if you have to say, it's what my character would do in order to justify an action, that means you haven't played your character well enough for it to, if you play your character well, you won't have to explain that it's what they do, If you play your character well, if you actually play your character, then you doing anything will be reasonable for that character. Because, so in the last episode of, Curse of Strahd, that we played, my character Margaret and Ruby Dead Queen's character Golsheen, we snuck away from Olive and Olivia during the night, during our watch, in order to go steal the Amulet of Ravenkind. That way we wouldn't need to gather the wine to get into Kretsk. Now, we didn't have to...
I know y'all did that, and we haven't really discussed that, in character yet.
I know.
I do still kind of want to go there anyway.
Oh, yeah. We still can. But, I didn't have to, neither me nor Golsheen had to say it's what my character would do, because our character, Margaret and Golsheen, are very pragmatic. They're the kinds to cut the knot. So, it makes sense for them to have done that without it having to be stated. Now, if Olive snuck off from the party to go steal it, that would be very out of character. The only time someone says it's what my character would do is when it's something their character definitely wouldn't do. or at least
Yeah.
definitely shouldn't do. But that's why it's what my character would do is like poison to the table, you know? There's like
Yeah.
exactly one story where that was not poison, you know? It's that one about the Star Wars campaign with the 2 Sith characters. You know the one I'm talking about?
I think vaguely.
The TLDR is that 2 of the players were playing Sith, and they were planning to betray their masters.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then one of the players decided to rat out the other, and so it was 2 Sith masters plus a Sith apprentice versus another Sith apprentice. The single Sith apprentice managed to slaughter all 3, and then executed the player who betrayed them. And it's like, why'd you do that? And it was like, dude, you betrayed me. It's like, betrayal is what Sith do. And the other person was like, well, forgiveness isn't something my character would do. You know? But that's yeah. Anywho, yeah. Don't be lawful stupid. Don't ruin a campaign because you want to kill another player. That's a dick move.
Don't be a prick.
Yeah. So I have one more story. DM runs game entirely based on their knowledge of Critical Role by Reasonable Ad 7695. And it was submitted 5 days ago. And it has 183 upvotes. Disclaimer. I love Critical Role, and at the time of the story, I did not have a single inkling about who or what they did. Hello all. Now this will presumably end up being a longer story, and if I do my best to recount it accurately, it has been 2 years now, this story was my first D&D experience. The characters are as follows. Me, a human gunslinger. My partner, a human monk. Friend A, a drow rogue. Friend B, an elven bard. And the DM, the problem. I'll call him Greg.
Greg!
Yeah.
I know the Greg.
My godfather is named Greg. No, my godfather is named Craig. With a C.
My godfather's named Greg.
So, a longtime friend
Once
of mine.
we're demonstrating that we are the same person.
So, Greg, a longtime friend of mine, became incredibly infatuated with Crit Role during the pandemic. As someone who has never gotten into tabletop RPGs, I felt very overwhelmed by the sheer volume of content Crit Role produces, and even more so by Greg, who had turned our usual hangouts into info dumps on the current episode's plotlines. It didn't end when we were hanging out in person either. We'd play video games and the guy would practically be AFK, talking endlessly about Crit Role and his desire to run a game. Interested in the idea of tabletop RPGs, I convinced my partner to join a game Greg had finally put together. Led to believe by his seemingly endless stream of information that he knew what he was doing. I was excited. I did some light research and found Percy from Crit Role to be particularly interesting, and I fashioned a human gunslinger with a similar build. Greg brought 2 of his other friends to the table, who largely aren't important to this. We used the standard array and point-buy system to settle in for our first game. The game goes as follows. The party comes into town because of an ongoing festival, and we gather in a tavern, and eventually, because of some drinking game, and suddenly a man bursts through the door, begging for the rescue of his daughter, taken by a herd of goblins. He offers gold, and we take him up on his offer. I head to the nearby woods. And this is where it all falls apart. Greg hands me my weapon stats. He homebrewed my firearms and told me that it was a high-risk, high-reward weapon.
Oh no.
My gunslinger's weapon, a small pistol, is incredibly powerful, dealing 2d6 piercing damage with each shot. Its misfire score is an 8?
Jesus.
Fuck. That's terrible. That is like a worse version of the pepper box. For those of you who don't know about anything about guns in 5e, a misfire score, if met, causes your weapon to jam. This is usually reserved for a nat 1 or for more powerful armaments, a 2 or 3. An 8 is astronomical and practically guaranteed to misfire every other round or so. Compare this to the high cost and repair, and one other glaring issue, admittedly something I could have read in the player's handbook more in depth. When making attacks, I was specifically told by Greg that dexterity did not add to my attack bonus, only my damage, and thus, with a +2 attack, I was practically guaranteed to either miss or misfire every attack. This made for an unplayable character, overshadowed by what all the other party members who could, in fact, add their associated stat bonuses. Fast forward a few sessions later, friend A and B have dropped out. So now it's only Greg, my partner, and myself. We enter a town and encounter a particularly charismatic tiefling with the quirkiness of an e-girl and a secret OnlyFans page. Dedicated to foot pics. Oh my god. A quirky tiefling girl. I'm guessing that this is I'm guessing this is Greg's interpretation of Jester.
Probably.
Because, oh god. My partner and I ignore the NPC, as both of our characters were rather paranoid, seeing as we'd come to said town looking for a murderous mage. The NPC proceeds to follow us to every location we go, eventually forcing her way into the party, as you guessed it, a DMPC. We eventually find a bookkeeper who offers us information in exchange for our services. We are asked to clear a basement with a curse attached to it. Our level 3 group proceeds to encounter the curse that, unless answered with a high DC, DC 18 con save, reduces AC movement and imposes disadvantage on melee attacks. Several high threat traps and an encounter later. Several high threat traps and an encounter we couldn't have possibly survived without the aid of Greg's wonderful DMPC, a Tempest Domain Cleric. Gelatinous Cube, CR2, 4 skeletons, some more traps, and a Gelatinous Cube. Oh my god. This thing is very hard to read. A Gelatinous Cube, CR2, 4 skeletons, and more traps within said room. The monk ends up playing the tank, which, if you know anything about monks, they struggle to do so, with 19 HP to her name, and she is quickly dropped into critical state. I do my best to pump damage in as quickly as I could, which translates to hoping my gum doesn't jam, and I spend the rest of the encounter fixing it. But Greg's DMPC, with a huge 37 HP, a 20 for AC for level 3, goes unscathed and even deals the finishing blow to the cube. Hate that! This is made worse by the consistent "the cube ignores the tiefling and sees the dying monk as a larger threat" comments. One short rest later, we venture deeper in to find that guarding said curse is a manticore. The manticores have tail spike attacks with a range of 100 feet and can shoot 3 of them, dealing 1d8 plus 3 piercing damage. Long story short, the encounter, which took place in a 20 by 20 room, involved not a single attack made by yours truly, broke my gun. The monk was unconscious, and Greg's DMPC being the only acting character inflicting damage to this creature. I ended up surviving with a single HP and having expended all my resources to do so. While there had been difficult encounters before, this one had been unbelievably so. And had it not been for his DMPC never rolling below a 12, we would have TPK'd without a doubt in my mind. Frustrated, I began to look deeper into the player's handbook and the damage. Coming to understand Critical Role, the absolute madness that was my misfire score, and the complete game changer that adding the +3 dex to my bonus rolls would have made, I confronted Greg. Greg's reply was something along the lines of, Matt Mercer always makes his players fight monsters too powerful for them. Their struggle is what makes it rewarding. That's actually not true. I'm all for a challenge, but there's a difference between an encounter we can make our way through with smart plays and the best blessing of the dice gods, and then there's two players in a DMPC going up against encounters that would give a full party some trouble. Greg then insisted that it was player error and that we had thought that had we thought the encounters more, we could have been fine. I disagree and ended up not playing beyond this point. I later would hear from friend A that Greg told him our character's choices were boring and unoriginal, and because of that, he set out to kill us so that we could roll up more interesting ones. Ew! Suddenly, everything made sense. I never played with Greg again, and have become a GM myself, running a year-long campaign for a group of my own, with more to come. Edit. Had a conversation with my partner, the monk, about this post, and she reminded me that apparently Greg had loved her backstory, and thus the two had talked about it. He tried, however, to insert his own ideas into her backstory, and when she declined, he seemingly agreed, only for them to later be shoved to the character anyway, and became upset when she was unreceptive. For context, her character had been an isolated child and he tried to eventually force her to have another character who would be her friend. This character would approach her in-game, and when she was confused as to who the character was, Greg threw a fit. Alright, so, Matt Mercer doesn't only give the players really difficult fights. He also gives them easy fights in between, as palate cleansers. But whenever they are going towards places, they know that whenever they're going to places that are very dangerous, he makes sure that they know that they are very dangerous and usually gives a few hints as to the kind of dangers that could be found there so that they can plan and prepare. For example, right now they're in the Feywild, or they were in the Feywild recently. And
how dare you tell me things that are going on in this podcast that I'm never going to listen to?
You should watch the show, the Amazon Prime show, because it is really good and a lot easier to consume if you don't have 400 hours to listen to Campaign 1. Plus,
if I remember rightly, to watch all of the Critical Role content, not including the animated series, takes longer than watching the entirety of One Piece.
Yep, you are correct.
And some other thing.
Yeah. So, I think Hunter x Hunter. It has more watch time than Hunter x Hunter. Anywho, so yeah, they were in the Feywild and they had to do a thing, and one of the characters' grandmothers, a hag in the Feywild, had adoptive grandmother, had informed them of a few of the threats that are along the way, as well as the escape route once they complete their mission. And then once they encountered those, they were like, wait, what did she say? We gotta pay an iron tithe to the quicksand or whatever. Another example is in Campaign 1, when they first got into the in the Briarwood arc, when they first got into Whitestone, they could see zombie giants roaming around. Like, they could see like the various things that could kill them, and then had time to make a plan. Hell, in the Chroma Conclave arc, there's literally an episode called "At Dawn We Plan."
Damn.
It is actually one of the best episodes, and I'm so glad they said that in the show. Because I would have been pissed if they didn't make a reference to it. But yeah, Matt Mercer does send them up against things that are more difficult than an average party would normally be able to handle. But the thing is, he also gives them prep time.
Yeah.
Anywho,
You try to do the same thing. It's just that we're dumb.
Yeah.
We're dumb, but it works out.
No, you did have prep time. I did give y'all, y'all did have enough time to come up with a plan for Cornello, once y'all figured out that he was indeed a devil.
Yeah.
Once y'all figured that out, y'all, devised the plan
Once I figured it out on a whim, just being like, hey, what if blank?
Yeah. And then from there, y'all figured out that the statue was probably, you know, keeping him in power or some shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, y'all also had the one y'all didn't really have prep time for was the Archfey, but y'all did have like some clues based on what the fish people were saying and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, hopefully.
I'm not saying that you don't give us prep time. I'm saying that we're dumb and don't take advantage of it most of the time.
I definitely suggest y'all take advantage of the prep time y'all will be receiving once y'all hit Reveal.
I mean, yeah, we're going up against more cult shit.
Yeah. Anywho, the other thing to take away from this is you are not Matt Mercer. Your players are not the Crit Role cast. You should aspire to have a game as fun as Crit Role, but you shouldn't aspire to copy it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can take, it's a great way to like take notes, but also actually do the research like Matt does. Like, when Matt made the Gunslinger class for 5e, for Taliesin, there were like a dozen revisions that he had to go under. Like, it was still playtesting. Taliesin was still playtesting up until like halfway through the Chroma Conclave arc, which is like halfway through the campaign, pretty much.
Making a class is hard.
It is hard. It is very hard. So yeah. Matt does a lot of research. And he even has a series that gives advice on new DMs. Take that advice. Don't just watch Critical Role and assume you know everything. Actually look at what it is that is happening. Super Geek Mike, it has an excellent series where he breaks down. Like, if you want to learn from Critical Role, watch Super Geek Mike's episode, Critical Role Demystified series, because he breaks down each episode and talks about the things that happen, as well as the process that the players go through in making the choices they make, as well as Matt making the choices he makes. One of the episodes, he breaks down like the thought process that a DM would have in creating a character like Victor, who is the only person to have black powder. The process is, alright, so someone who has black powder, they would need to be eccentric, because black powder is not really seen as useful. Percy made the first gun, so guns are not widespread. Now, that also means he can't just be someone who's also making a gun. through parallel thought, that would rob Percy of his player agency, or that would rob Taliesin of his player agency. He's got to be someone who's unhinged. Instead of eccentric, make him mad, and also a hoarder, because that would be the kind of person that would have this kind of thing. And that's how he made the best character in Critical Role, Victor.
I am so sneezy.
Oh man, my nose is so stuffed up. I hate the spring. It's not even spring yet.
It's Texas. What do you mean? Of course it's spring.
I know, but technically next month is spring. Anywho, you got a story? One last story to top this cake of cringe? The candles?
Yeah, it's kind of long.
Alright, do you want to save it for next time then?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well then, I guess that's where we'll end it.
I'm too, allergies, sneezy.
Yeah.
I spent your entire Critical Role explanation where I wasn't actively saying things. Just muted and sneezing.
Oh yeah, no,
Muted, sneezing, blowing my nose. God, fuck.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I was the same way when you were reading the one about the, fucking, the lawful stupid. Anywho, thank you everybody for watching the Posscast. Tune in next week where we will have more stories, and more cringe. So, there's other stuff on the channel. I'm playing Hollow Knight. My boyfriend is playing Bug Fables. Biddy, what are you playing?
I'm playing Minish Cap.
Yep. And you can go check out yesterday's episodes where we took on the Palace of the Winds.
Hey!
There is also Tabletop Thursdays where Biddy, Chokfi, and I play Tabletop Simulator. I believe the most recent episode is Labyrinth, because we got some rules wrong last week when we played Labyrinth. It's still a game that's being play tested. The dev
we still hold the monopoly on YouTube.
Blackstone. Yeah. And I explained why we have been playing wrong this whole time. So, anywho, the final thing on the channel is our D&D campaigns. As mentioned, we are playing in Curse of Strahd, run by our friend Chokfi, and also I have a homebrew called World of Tapir. That's the one where Dr. Tross is in.
Yes.
So definitely catch those out. As mentioned, they're chasing down a cult and got some leads leading them to a city called Reveil. And they're going to need to definitely take advantage of prep time. Comment challenge of the day. What was your most absurd character build?
My most absurd character build. I don't know, I guess Levere?
I would have guessed Rathiu.
Rathiu.
Yeah. My most absurd character build is one that I haven't gotten the chance to play yet. It is a Aarakocra named Chauncey. He has a he is from the realm of Zulu. He's intended as a backup for Curse of Strahd. And I rolled really, really bad stats.
Is that your peacock?
Yep, he is a peacock. He's a monk. He's got an intelligence of 5, making him illiterate. But he has heard many stories about great adventure and has a not so good understanding of how terrible being an adventurer actually is. Like, he's in love with the fantasy of heroism, but doesn't understand. It's like those people who grow up watching. It's like those people between the 40s and the 60s who grew up listening to like the war stories of World War II, but then once they hit Vietnam, once they end up in Vietnam, they realize that no, it's actually really fucking bad. That's the kind of character.
Actually, war sucks.
Yeah, that's the kind of character that Chauncey was going to be. He was going to be very idealistic about what adventuring is like, and then once he actually does it, he's going to be like, oh no, this is bad. You want to know why? Because when I made him, I had just finished watching Guardians Owls of Ga'Hoole. My favorite Zack Snyder film. That's one of the
yeah.
That's one of the plot points. Anywho, yeah, he's an idiot. He's got an intelligence of 5, but he thinks he has an intelligence of 20.
He goes in there. He's like, "Wait, fuck! I can die."
Yeah. Yeah. He finds Strahd's journal. It's like, interesting. Clearly, he was devising some powerful rituals, and look at this, look at these strange symbols. It's just like, dear diary, Sergei was mean to me. I'm gonna put a whoopee cushion under his chair. Anywho, with that out of the way, there's nothing left to say, but good night, everybody.
Bye.